Well, good evening, everyone. Father Bob Gross here. Hope all of you had a very good weekend. I want to share with you the homily that I shared with our folks today. Today's the third Sunday of Lent, Cycle B, and the reading that we'll be looking at closely today for Mass is Exodus chapter 20, verses 1 to 17. It's the Ten Commandments. But I want to start with a story. In 1985, we bought our first VCR, our family. Remember VCRs, those things, you know? And then there was these stores that would pop up called video rental stores. So we started a family custom of every Saturday night getting a movie. And my parents wanted us to see the golden oldies all the time. So we saw It's a Wonderful Life. Then we saw Casablanca, I don't know how many times. Here's looking at you, kid, right? So we had those movies. Well, recently I've been appreciating some of the old movies that I have watched growing up. And there's one that I want to highlight today. In 1986, there's a movie that came out called The Karate Kid. If you remember that story, it's about Daniel LaRusso. He grew up in New Jersey, moved all the way to California with his mom, and he was trying to fit into his new school, and he got beat up by a bunch of guys, bullies, who were into a Taekwondo karate studio. So when he was being beaten up, an old Asian man by the name of Mr. Miyagi defended him. And to settle the score, Daniel LaRusso went into a karate tournament. And Mr. Miyagi was going to teach him. So here's how Mr. Miyagi taught Daniel's son. Remember? He went into his home and there was a fleet of cars. And what did Mr. Miyagi have Daniel do? Wax on, wax off. Right? And then the second thing that he had him do was to paint the fence up, down, up, down. Then the third chore that he had him do was sand the floor, sand the floor, sand the floor. And after all of that, Daniel LaRusso became furious and said, Mr. Miyagi, I was supposed to learn karate. And then Mr. Miyagi showed that wax on, wax off was a karate move, blocking. Then up, down was another form of blocking. Sand the floor was another form of blocking. And Daniel LaRusso was learning karate and didn't even know it. I mention that because that's one way to think about the Ten Commandments that we have just heard again. Many times we bristle at the thou shalt not, but if you look at the greater purpose of the commandments, you see that the commandments are for life, for freedom, for goodness, to live as we were meant to be made to live. Because the most important line of that reading is, I, the Lord your God, am your God, who brought you out of the land of Egypt, that place of slavery. So the Israelites were in slavery, and by virtue of being freed from slavery, God gives the commandments to Israel, so that they will never be enslaved again. So the commandments are to help us to be freed from the slavery that we experience in life. And that's the slavery to sin. So today what I want to do is look at the greater picture of what the Ten Commandments are. Not just focusing on the thou shalt not, which is important, but what is another way of stating the commandments, maybe positively. So let's go through that together. The first commandment is, I am the Lord your God, you shall have no other gods before me. Another way of saying that would be, God is first in your life no matter what. More important than your possessions, your family, the things in life, the things you spend time with, God is number one in your life. The second commandment, you shall not use the Lord's name in vain. Another way of saying that is, anything that is holy and that refers to God is to be cherished. His name, His churches, the holy things in life, the holy names of the saints, those things are to be cherished because they are holy. Remember, keep holy the Sabbath. Another way of saying it would be, go to Mass every Sunday and take a day off of work. Who doesn't want a day off of work? I like two, but God only gives one, right? Remember to keep holy the Sabbath. Go to Mass and take a day off. Be with God once a week at least. Honor your father and your mother. Love your family. If you are in authority, Use it compassionately and justly. Do not abuse the authority that you have as a parent over his or her children, as an employer who employs others. Be a generous and compassionate and good person if you are in authority. If you're in public office, do not abuse your authority or be tempted by corruption. The fifth commandment, thou shalt not kill. Human life is holy, from the womb to the tomb. That's it. We honor and protect and cherish human life no matter what, and even our own lives as well. Thou shalt not commit adultery. Sex is holy. It's not a recreational sport. It's between a man and a woman who love each other in the commitment of marriage, which gives the proper right of a child to have a father and a mother in their lives. Thou shalt not steal. Honor the property of others as you honor your own. You shall not bear false witness against your neighbor. Always, always, always tell the truth, no matter what. Always tell the truth. It is always better to tell the truth. You shall not covet your neighbor's wife. No one should ever be used as a means to an end, even in our thoughts. We are to honor the relationships that we have with each person in purity. And lastly, you shall not covet your neighbor's goods. Be thankful for what you have. Contentment is a gift from God. So don't worry about what other people have. God gives you what you need to be faithful to him, including the goods that you have. So keeping up with the Joneses doesn't help anybody. When you put the commandments that way, you see the greater purpose of what God is trying to do. He's like Mr. Miyagi. He starts by teaching us without telling us the whole story, but the rest of our life is to be told the whole story to realize that the commandments are not for restriction and slavery, but they are for freedom. We don't have to be enslaved to sin, and the commandments are the way out of slavery. So I hope you think about that, pray about that. You should know the 10 Commandments, memorize the 10 Commandments, cherish the 10 Commandments, and most of all, live them. And if you have a hard time living them, go to confession and start over. God is a merciful Father. So I hope that helps you in this week of Lent, and may God bless you, and don't do anything I wouldn't do. Peace.